For most of human history, a boss did not exist. If you were a human living 50,000 years ago, the idea of a single, all-powerful ruler, a king, a dictator, a CEO, would have seemed completely alien and honestly, incredibly dangerous. Today, we are surrounded by hierarchy. We have presidents with nuclear codes, billionaires who control global communication, and managers who decide if we can pay rent. We often assume this is just how humans naturally organize. We think someone always has to be in charge. But for 95% of our species' existence, humans lived in a state of fierce, radical equality. Our ancestors didn't just stumble into democracy, they actively, aggressively prevented anyone from taking absolute power. No one sat down and drafted a constitution. Leadership back then was created by accident, born out of the absolute necessity of surviving the wilderness. To understand how this worked, you have to picture a world where survival depended entirely on the person standing next to you. Humans lived in small, mobile bands of hunter-gatherers, usually fewer than 100 people. In these groups, there were no police, no laws, and no inherited titles. You couldn't become leader just because your dad was leader. Power had to be earned every single day, and it was entirely situational. If your band needed to hunt a mammoth, everyone looked to the person who was the best tracker. If a rival tribe approached, power shifted to the best diplomat or the fiercest warrior. Once the hunt or the negotiation was over, that authority vanished. The leader went back to being just another person sitting around the campfire. Anthropologists call this achievement-based leadership. You didn't hold an office, you held a specific skill. Now, here's the critical part. Humans are naturally proud. And back then, arrogance was viewed as a literal death sentence for the group. If a hunter got too cocky because he brought home the most meat, the tribe didn't throw him a parade. They actively humiliated him. This sounds harsh, but scientists and anthropologists have observed this exact behavior in modern hunter-gatherer societies, like the Zhuangzi of southern Africa. When a hunter brings back a massive kill, the tribe intentionally calls the meat scrawny or worthless. They do this to cool his heart and keep him from thinking he is better than everyone else. Because the moment a human thinks they are above the group, they start hoarding resources. And in the Ice Age, hoarding meant other people starved. Over millennia, evolution slowly filtered human groups based on how well they suppressed bullies. If an individual became hyper-aggressive, greedy, or tried to force others to obey, the tribe would deploy what scientists call counter-dominant strategies. First, they would use gossip and ridicule behind the bully's back. If that didn't work, they would look him in the eye and laugh at him. If he still didn't get the hint, the ultimate punishment was exile, casting him out into the wilderness alone, which practically guaranteed death. In extreme cases, the entire tribe would quietly agree to execute the tyrant in his sleep. For over 100,000 years, the primary qualification for being a leader was, paradoxically, not wanting to be a tyrant. But then the world changed forever, and our relationship with power broke. Around 10,000 years ago, humans invented agriculture. Suddenly, we weren't moving anymore. We stayed in one place, grew crops, and built granaries. For the first time in history, we had a surplus of food. And a surplus of food meant something completely new. It could be stolen, and it could be guarded. This is the exact moment the accidental leadership model flipped. The people who were best at organizing defenses and controlling the food supply became permanent figures of authority. They didn't have to pack up their tents and move, they built stone walls. Over generations, these protectors turned into administrators, administrators turned into chiefs, and chiefs turned into kings who claimed their power was granted by the gods themselves. We traded our freedom for security. Think about how extraordinary that shift is. Our brains evolved for hundreds of thousands of years to resist dominant rulers. Yet in just a few millennia, we built an entire global civilization completely dependent on them. But traces of our ancient campfire psychology are still buried deep inside us. When you feel an instinctive urge to root for the underdog in a movie, you are tapping into the mind of an Ice Age hunter-gatherer fighting off a bully. When we gossip about corrupt politicians or mock arrogant celebrities on the internet, we are using the exact same social weapons our ancestors used to keep overbearing alpha males in check. Inside every modern voter and employee is the shadow of a fiercely egalitarian nomad. Maybe that is why our relationship with modern leadership always feels so tense. We need leaders to run our massive, complex societies, but we don't entirely trust them. We want them to be strong enough to protect us, but humble enough to remember they are still one of us. In a cave in France, archaeologists found the footprints of a young boy walking alongside a large wolf dog from 26,000 years ago. But right beside them are the signs of a community that walked together, side by side, sharing everything equally. No palaces, no thrones, no masters. Just a band of humans figuring out how to survive the dark by trusting each other. For thousands of generations, humans chose leaders not by looking up at a stage, but by looking across the fire. No grand plan, no crowns, just a quiet, collective understanding that the strongest group is the one where no single person is allowed to rule alone. And tomorrow morning, when you walk into an office or read the news about global rulers, you'll be participating in a system of power that is entirely new, carrying a brain that still remembers what true equality feels like.